brands marketing at you like you're a computer, not a human? We believe there's more to this business than worshiping at the feet of the algorithm. We're three marketers, Matt Banker, Paige Worthy, and David Hepburn. Marketing can be empathetic, ethical, and effective all at once. I am a fighter! This is Hello First Name, a marketing podcast for thinking, feeling humans.
Welcome to the inaugural episode of Hello First Name podcast. We do things a little differently here. We're live, and then people will be joining the room as well, so it's a little more interactive. This is a show where we learn how to buy email lists and send spammy DM pitches on LinkedIn, and Paige is going to tell us about that today. No, just kidding. We are actually doing a podcast on how to make marketing more human. We're three marketers. We're on the inside of the industry in that way. We're doing marketing, but sometimes we're a little bit skeptical ourselves, even about the tactics that are happening in this industry. So we wanted to start a podcast talking about some of that stuff. At the heart of it, we do believe that marketing can be empathetic, ethical, and effective all at once. And that's what this conversation is going to be. So my co-hosts are Paige Worthy and David Hepburn, and let's do some quick introductions. Paige, who are you and what do you care about?
I care about so many things. My name is Paige Worthy. My company is Paige Worthy LLC. I'm a StoryBrand certified guide, and I help my clients with overall marketing strategy, marketing messaging, and all of the deliverables that go along with that messaging. So full sales funnels, website content, email marketing. I'm especially excited about email because I believe the inbox is a sacred space, and we have so many opportunities to honor that sacred space and really build relationships within our email marketing. So that's what I do. And we'll get into more of what I care about during our next segment. David, who are you?
In the episodes to come. Hey, I'm David Hepburn. I am the Chief Creative Officer and co-founder at Hepburn Creative Inc. We are a video production company that works with businesses and nonprofits to create high-end videos. We believe that every business or nonprofit, regardless of what side of the spectrum you're on in that, should be changing the world or should have the tools that they need to change the world. And so we create the video content that helps them do that.
You both, you sound so high. What's the word? Like you're doing important things in the world. I'm going to sound like the crass capitalist on this podcast, apparently. My name is Matt Banker.
We can put that in your lower third.
That sounds good.
Crass capitalist.
I have two. Yeah, crass capitalist. I have two agencies, sort of, two brands, basically. Banker Creative, we build StoryBrand websites, also a StoryBrand guide. Just signed up for my 6th year as a StoryBrand guide. And my other business is called Benchmark Growth Marketing, and we are in a narrow niche of doing marketing for accounting firms. And I'm super interested in what is working now. Maybe I am kind of the cynic on this podcast about marketing things, or at least I'm always questioning what is working and not. And so I'll be the one to be the devil's advocate and try to poke holes in whatever Paige has to say today. I'm gonna.
Can't wait.
We'll see what happens. I'm gonna be that helpful. What's the helpful antagonist to help you clarify your thinking on
yeah, I'll be the judge of that.
But I think the
the helpful part.
I think the really important thing as we're getting started with this, and with it being episode 1, is that this is something that the three of us have talked about, is that this is a dialogue. This should be a dialogue. Mm-hmm. And marketing, the world of marketing is rapidly changing. It always has been. There's a lot of talk of like the old way of doing marketing and the new way of doing marketing. It's not that polarized. Like it's a constant changing world of how we do marketing. There's, if you do a Google search, if you're a business or you're, someone who's getting into marketing or has been in marketing a long time, that you can click on, a search engine and say, 10 tips for marketing. And there's going to be thousands of blog posts that talk about what those 10 tips or, whatever should be at any given time. And, you often have to look at the date of when that was published, because you're like, oh, this is obviously an old way. And it's like published in 2021. And you're like, cool.
Yeah. Those hot takes,
this is
go lukewarm really fast.
Right. Yes. It's fast food for sure. And so, we just this is a dialogue, and that's what the three of us are here to do is basically to have a dialogue, not only together, but live with you, the audience. And that's something that we're really excited about.
Yeah, I love this platform because this means that I get like a third of the time in the meeting, and then the three of us can talk, and then there's all these other people that can also ask questions, but we don't have to fully share the platform with everybody. We get to control it a little bit.
Yeah,
this is me being the cynical control.
So the crass
no, it is. I mean, it is exciting.
Cynical capitalist.
This title is getting longer by the minute. Cool.
Yeah, this should be fun though. So what we're going to do today is Paige has a topic. She wants to talk about consent in marketing. Not just Paige isn't the only one that wants to talk about it. We all want to talk about this, but she's prepared something to talk about it. And so it's going to be a little bit of an interview style, and then we're going to open it up for questions, and those can be questions specifically on the topic at hand, or we'll see where it goes. Maybe it'll broaden out a little bit more than that. And at the end, we'll wrap up with something fun that we can't stop thinking about. So what do you think? Should we dive into it?
That sounds great.
Yes.
Paige, take us away.
Yeah. Give us kind of an overview. Consent in marketing. What does that mean? What's the background? Why do you think that it's important?
So, in my intro, I mentioned the inbox being a sacred space, and that it's our job to kind of honor that sanctity. And that is how I feel about a lot of marketing. I want to ground us in kind of where I'm coming from right now. I am in the midst of a feminist copywriting certification that dovetails really nicely with the StoryBrand way, right? The framework, in that it's really grounded in empathy, and this copywriting certification goes one step further in really applying intersectionality and things like consent in marketing, to really acknowledge the life experience of the people that we're marketing to. Consent in particular comes from the social trigger of reciprocity that drives a lot of marketing today, whether we acknowledge or know it or not as marketers. So the idea of reciprocity, if you think about the free gift or free sample that makes us feel unconsciously like, oh, well, they gave me something free, I should buy it. God, like the people at the mall who are like, oh, can I give you like a hand massage? And they have the lotions and stuff, and they spend like 10 minutes going through their thing and like making your hands feel like butter. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I guess I should buy this like dead sea salt package for $75. I only say that because I've fallen for it. I've like hook, line, and sinker. Yeah, I've got the kit. I bought the T-shirt. Like it's a whole thing. So reciprocity is a really powerful concept, and we might know about it as marketers. I hope anyone who listens to this now has it on their radar, but a lot of people don't, because it's an unconscious trigger. And a lot of people won't necessarily be affected by this, but there are people with maybe marginalized identities or different life experiences for whom abuse of the idea of reciprocity can really be harmful to them. It can bring up a situation that they survived or went through, and it can just really negatively affect them. So seeking consent and naming the fact that like, hey, we get that, reciprocity can be a powerful concept, and I want to make sure you understand what I'm doing here when, I ask you for your information to download a lead generator, or I invite you to subscribe to my newsletter for helpful tips. The expectation on our end is always, I'm going to build trust with this person to hopefully eventually get them to buy. Just saying that is seeking consent in itself. Like, just naming it can be enough to provide consent. So there are other ways that you can go farther with that, but that's the basic tenet of consent in marketing.
Yeah.
So, like right now, when you're thinking about that, where are you seeing that like really abused, or like who are the worst the worst places that we're seeing maybe lack of consent, or marketing kind of intruding in that way that's not really doing it well?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, the idea of reciprocity is something in the status quo of marketing that hasn't traditionally been questioned very much. Like, it's really been thought of as like, well, this is the way we do it because this is how we get sales. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to name names because there are a lot of businesses that incorporate this, light abuse of the idea of reciprocity, potentially unwittingly. So I do have some examples of, bad consent. So one of those that I see a lot is when you go to make a purchase from a website. You buy one thing that you wanted, and instead of asking you like, hey, thanks for your purchase, do you want to hear from us some more? The onslaught immediately begins. Like, hey, you just bought this thing, but don't you want to buy more? And just so many online retailers send just an inordinate number of marketing messages in any given week, and it can be overwhelming, and often it can breed resentment of a brand. At least if you're me.
Yeah.
If you're me,
Absolutely.
It breeds intense resentment.
Well, and the really wild thing about that too is there has been times recently, like if you take that to the extreme, there's even been times recently where I've made a purchase of something online and I start getting marketing emails from the company before I receive the product that I bought. And
100%.
Hey, let's get that thing that I transactionally asked for before you start selling me on more.
Correct. Yeah, it's really obnoxious. And there are, these online retailers in particular have the data and the capability to wait on that. They have so much data on us as customers. They know when a shipment has triggered. They know when something has been delivered. Like, they get all that information, and it would be so easy to segment that down and say, hey, this person's a customer. Maybe it would make sense to send them one coupon for their next purchase. But don't start with like Samaria says, 4 to 5 emails a day until we have a chance to decide if we even want to patronize this company again. So that's one
I really don't even know
example.
I don't even know a single company that I love enough to get 4 to 5 emails a day from. Regardless of that.
Why, in your mind, why do you think companies are doing that? Does it just come down to, well, that it seems to work, we can A/B test this, and it seems like quantity is just effective, therefore we'll do it? Is that as simple as it is?
Repetition is a huge part of what people believe makes marketing effective. And just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? That's a good phrase to internalize. And I think that these businesses assume that there's so much noise in the inbox, which is a correct assumption, that they need to hammer their message through to be heard. When really, perhaps it would be worth it to A/B test, sending fewer and, making the offer more compelling, or segmenting down based on, I don't know, what you bought or, what page you were looking at when you signed up for the 10% off to get a discount code. Like, I think those things might be linked. Like, use the incredible amounts of data that you have at your disposal to do something good with them. Don't just, when the first time somebody gives you their email address, don't just dump them into the big old funnel and, and have that just be enough. I think a lot of the time it's more laziness than it is anything else. And it ends up being really yucky and abusive. Yeah. So
I think there's a lot of assumptions that marketers have of like, oh, this is how we've done it, or this is what. A lot of times reading reports too about, hey, this is such and such company said this is what works from, like what David said earlier. This works for marketing. You look and it's an article from 2017. And so they're relying on data that is really outdated at this point. I think was it Miriam had a post on
subject
LinkedIn
lines
today talking about subject lines, and the thing I thought about was that. Oh man, I'm losing my train of thought here. What were we talking about? We were talking about like stuff that used to work. There's this idea that you can just keep hitting people with these like overly copywritten subject lines again and again, and that's the magic sauce, right? Like if you just follow the template or follow the experts, it's going to work. And if we really took a step back and just said, what works on me? That would be an easy like step to take as a marketer to validate, is this still working? For me recently, it's really been the ebook download. I don't know the last time that I downloaded an ebook and then like went on to purchase a product. And so it's the same thing with email though. You ask, okay, what companies that send me 4 to 5 emails a day? The only lazy part there is me being lazy, not unsubscribing. Like I'm not going to buy from them, but I just haven't gotten around to like getting them out of my inbox yet.
And
but they're not going to come back.
I am
either.
a rampant unsubscriber.
Yeah.
Well, this is getting away from the idea of consent, but when when I get an email confirming that I've unsubscribed, my God, go to hell. Like literally, I'm not inviting you into my inbox. And you're back saying, see you later if you change your mind. Oh my God. That's just like, I don't know, poking the bear.
Well, here's a question, Paige. What are ways, it sounds like one of the things that I'm hearing as you and Matt are talking about this is the idea that we are making decisions as businesses and marketers based on what we're reading as like industry things to try or industry, tips and tricks. What are ways,
benchmarks that maybe don't even apply to us?
Right. What are ways that businesses and marketers can be listening to their audience rather than the industry as ways that they can better connect with the people they're actually trying to reach?
So asking feels like a revolutionary start. Like if someone has given you permission to be in their inbox, for example, why not take an opportunity to, on the back end, segment them further, find out, what do you care about? What actually brought you here? There's a debate, I'm sure, to whether that belongs in the opt-in form, although that presents a barrier to entry and asking too many questions. Ask them what kind of emails they want to receive. Give them lots of opportunities to dial in their preferences. Don't just make it a blanket subscribe, unsubscribe. And then use your data, especially if you're a larger company. Find out, what group of people is opening certain campaigns or We get so much data on people if we're regularly putting out content, and how many companies are using it beyond the vanity metric when there's really a lot of good information about what people want, what people respond to.
Can I ask about a test case and just get your kind of opinion on it? So I think this is pretty typical. You join a professional organization as a vendor partner, and so you get an email list of the people that are part of that org. They've given, I'll call it implied consent by being a part of this organization, that they have vendor partners, and part of how they fund their events and things is that they give access to their group. So I want to set up an email campaign to reach out to these people who are right in my ideal customer profile. I know they need my services, but they haven't explicitly opted in. It's just kind of an implied consent. Typically what we do is I write like a 3 email warm-up sequence, which is
talked about
email
this
number
before.
1. Yeah. So number 1 is, hey, you're on my list because of this reason. We're part of the same organization. Please opt out if you don't want to be getting these emails, but I'm planning on sending you additional emails after this. And then you follow up with, I'm going to send you some great content, and then you might send something that's a little more of like a marketing email as one of those 3. Give me the and if it's a tear down and say, hey, don't do that, I'm happy to hear. But what's your thought on that? That's a pretty typical, that's the fuzzy line of marketing of what's working and how do you get access to people and how do you honor their consent and willingness to hear from you.
I think there are different levels of severity is the word that's coming to mind. That's not exactly what I'm looking for, but there are levels of adherence to the idea of consent where, Erica Bryant would say, don't introduce yourself. Don't waste space in somebody's inbox just saying like, hi, I got your email address. Nice to meet you. And I think I adhere to that. I would show up immediately and just offer the dang resource. Just say, you can say somewhere in the email, like, hey, I'm a fellow member of X organization. I'm a vendor, and, you'll start to see me at events or whatnot. I'm looking forward to getting to know you. Here's one of my favorite resources for businesses like you. You could download it here. And if you never want to hear from me again, you can opt out.
Yeah. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to dovetail on what you're saying, Paige, that as a video company, we don't do a ton of email marketing. We often provide resources that go into the video or the email marketing that other people are creating for businesses and nonprofits. From my own personal experience, I have always felt a little bit sketched out by the idea of getting access to a list of names and then using that to email them. Because for me personally, I think, Paige, you've given me the words to put to this feeling. I feel like by the time you're in someone's inbox, it's too late to be asking for consent. You need, it needs to be, the consent should be pre-inbox. Because like you said, it's a sacred space where we all get so many emails that by the time you have an email showing up, like if I get an email from someone that I don't know, it's almost instantly a delete. I may not even open the email before deleting it. Like I open and read emails from people that I have already said yes to, but I don't there's no first email where I give people a chance and go, oh yeah, that seems interesting. Like I'm doing that on the web or on social media or on personal relationships who've said, hey, you should check out this resource. And I think that's kind of a tricky thing to wrestle with since it is such a common form of marketing for a lot of businesses and industries to do that, to get that email list or, to buy that list of potentially hundreds of thousands of names where, you have whole services that are like, we can scrub these lists for you. And, I just think that goes, that's sketch. How do you guys feel about that?
Well, and I think Matt's point about, when someone becomes a member of an organization, there is implied consent there that like, yep, we understand like there are select vendors who are going to be reaching out to me. The organization giving you an opportunity to opt out of those vendor communications would be ACEs. You know, like that's a good step that the organization can and should take.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think that organizations are increasingly actually moving away from giving people access to those lists and instead finding other ways to create value for their sponsors so that the funds keep coming in.
Yeah.
What those are, I'm not entirely sure because I don't deal much in the membership organization space.
Yeah.
But
that's true.
I think that is
the sponsored
one area
blog
where
posts.
it's not sponsored blog posts or, you know, and offering where, you know, maybe the vendor gets to partner with the vendor on a webinar for members, a lunch and learn, an event at an in-person conference, something like that, where you're giving access, but then allowing people to think, oh, that was really helpful to me. I'm going to go, you know, download the resource that they offered at the end of the webinar, or like whether the organization is prepared to do the lift to create that resource, like that then becomes a pretty large onus on the organization to create that particular value. And again, it goes to the idea of either lack of resources, because a lot of professional organizations have super shoestring staffs.
Absolutely.
And laziness. Again, you know, there might be some of that, and a shifting of priorities might be in line for organizations that are still doing it the old school way.
It's almost a comfortability in what is like we hide behind the idea of industry standard a lot, where it's like, well, I do this because if I don't, my competitors are doing it. And you even see that in like
this is the way we've always done it.
And you even see that in the hostile way that companies will be like, you know, the pop-up that's like, sign up for our newsletter, or, you know, sign up for our lead gen. And then
no thanks. I'd rather my competitors get this.
Exactly.
And I think that's another really icky tactic that, you know, like just let somebody say no. Don't guilt them or try to scare them into, you know, the scarcity of resources and the zero-sum game of like, well, if you don't take it, somebody else is going to, and they're going to use the information to beat you at your game. Like, come on. Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, let's talk about that a little. So on one hand, you could hear this conversation and it could sound like, okay, I'm in marketing and you're saying I should unilaterally disarm and stop doing all of these tactics that are common and best practices, you know, in quotes, that people are using. But I do think that there's an upside to being a company that is more transparent and is explicit about this, right? So let's talk a bit about that. How do you weaponize asking consent as a that's too much war metaphor, but you know, how do you turn that into a tool that's a benefit for you as a marketer instead of just something that you're going to stop doing and therefore like self-limit?
That's a great question, and I think the best example of seeking consent came out of the lead up to Mother's Day. And this conversation has focused really heavily on email. There are other ways to do this on other platforms, but I think email is such a great place to crystallize the idea of consent. So leading up to Mother's Day, I started getting emails from businesses that I've given permission to come into my inbox, offering me an opportunity to opt out of Mother's Day campaigns. Mother's Day is a really fraught holiday for a lot of people, whether they, you know, have recently lost their mother, not in the supermarket, to death. I don't know why that clarification was necessary. maybe they have had a miscarriage, or there are a lot of reasons that maybe maybe you have a toxic relationship with your mother or your family, and for any reason you just don't want to hear about it. Businesses like Etsy and Pandora Jewelry and Uncommon Goods, Parachute Away. I'm looking at an article from NPR that did a pretty hearty download of some of the companies that were doing this. It was a really simple email that acknowledged, hey, we get that this can be a tough time for people. If you want to opt out of these targeted emails, like we'll still send you emails about, products that you're interested in, but you won't get our Mother's Day messaging. That is an example of something that just is not that heavy of a lift to create a segmented list of people who in general don't mind being marketed to,
right,
and then just remove the people who say, hey, I don't really want to get these emails. I think that's one thing that marketers can and should be doing anyway, is don't just have a blanket subscribe, unsubscribe. Create lists for different types of campaigns. Find out, again, ask what people are interested in hearing about. I don't really care about company news a lot of the time, but if it's a valuable,
I never
no,
care about company news. No one does.
That's just something that marketing teams have to do because their PR department or their top brass tells them we have to let them know that, we've partnered with XYZ, or our earnings report is out. No.
Yeah.
No one wants to hear about that. So that's a really good example, and people notice when you do things like that. And of course, when you're a big consumer brand, the notice is going to be more prominent. You might get a little bit of a press bump, but it's also just the right thing to do. Yeah. I had a friend who, and this is on the topic of mothers again, in part because women are often marginalized. Women deal with a lot of, negative healthcare experiences, pay disparities, et cetera, et cetera. A woman's insurance company had gotten wind of the fact, likely because she had a prenatal appointment or, got an indication from the health system that she was with child, right? And she miscarried. She lost the baby. And a few months later, she got an email with a reminder about hey, it's time for your baby's first batch of vaccinations. And hey, what business of yours is it to send out that kind of messaging? And that's the doctor's office's job. Let the company that, I don't know if you can hear that.
I was gonna say, I feel like that's a really
this is very important.
It's a really well-timed sound effect for what we're talking about.
It's an emergency.
Exactly.
Yeah, so let someone whose actual responsibility that is do it, and B, why?
Yeah.
What value do you think you're providing to someone who you clearly, in the case of this woman, know absolutely nothing about except for the data, the outdated data that you have on someone? If it's easy enough for you to get information about the person being pregnant, it should be easy enough to get information about the fact that they miscarried. Yeah. So I think just don't be a dummy and use data responsibly.
Yeah.
If we can over personalize emails and make it sound like an email is from, a real human who, wants to be your buddy and sell you shit, you can also be an actual human.
Yeah. Something that I hear throughout this conversation is just the idea of intentionality. It comes back to the core of what our podcast is going to be about, is that it's marketing for thinking, feeling humans. This is
Correct.
So much of marketing now that's advertised to businesses is the idea of like this just set it and forget it, being able to like automate your email and automate your social media and automate. And that's great. There's a lot of really amazing benefits to that. But at the end of the day, like it should be an email from a human to a human. It shouldn't be just something that you're building that goes out into the world and statistically speaking, you're going to get X amount of clicks and X amount of sales from it. It should be about, is this email going to be opened by a human being? And are you going to feel that connection to each other through that? Not just as a business, but as an actual, like you said, Paige, the transparency of from a company to an individual. Because at the end of the day, your company should be about providing value to someone. You know, even if it's business to business, you're still providing value to humans who work at that business. And so you really need to,
and to incredibly busy people who have a business to run. So if you're not going to provide value, why are you there?
Absolutely.
So I want to close with a couple of thoughts about consent. Anybody can hit this unsubscribe button. Matt's too lazy to do it, but he's capable of it, right?
I am capable of.
Your index finger works. But that is work that we shouldn't expect people to have to do. If we build consent into our marketing practices, we're going to reach people who are enthusiastically ready to receive what we're sending them. We have a lot of power as marketers, and with great power comes great responsibility, right? And I think the other thing is going back to the idea of, you know, why would you want people in your marketing orbit who resent you for wallpapering your inbox with stuff they don't want to see? Like, don't you want to be sending content to people who actually want to get it? Like, we're building relationships as marketers, so don't set yourself up to be building an adversarial relationship. You know, like Sarah in the comments said, I'd love it if unnamed bra company sent me body positivity affirmations rather than text to buy more bras. A woman can only have so many bras. Like, are there other ways, especially if you're claiming to be a body positive brand, are there other ways that you can show up and engender some warm fuzzies for your brand? Like, build that relationship. And there are different types of marketers. There are transactional marketers and there are relational marketers. And I know, David, we've joked about how the idea of being relational is like, maybe that's a slippery bowling ball, but the idea that you're building a relationship rather than just trying to hammer in a sale through whatever it is that you're sending. So let's make a pledge that we're going to cultivate enthusiasm for our brand, not, you know, abject hatred.
Not just a pursuit of the next sale. Yeah. Absolutely.
Correct.
Thank you, Paige, for there's obviously a lot of thought and passion around those ideas, and I think it's interesting for us to just keep thinking. There's always this tension between what do we know we should be doing and what do we think is going to be effective. And I think a lot of marketers feel like they're being pulled in two different directions. And a lot of these things I think make sense at a like human being level. Yeah, like this is how I want to interact with other human beings. But there's this pressure that you have to do things that are going to be a little more, pushy. We'll call it gray hat sometimes.
A lot of the time that pressure comes from up top because they think that's what drives results.
Yeah.
And because they think like, well, this is what worked at my old place of employment, or, this is what I'm seeing our competitors doing. And marketers have to fight an uphill battle, even if they are, working to be more ethical and more empathetic. A lot of the time they just have to fight to make that change.
Yeah.
Which sucks.
Yeah, we have the advantage. We're all outside, right? We're
the boss.
We're working for our clients. We can kind of choose who we work for and start to communicate that. But a lot of marketers are in a business, and their objectives and things are a little different. Well, I dropped it into the chat, and that if people had questions, let's open it up.
Lynn just asked in the comments a really great question, Paige. How far do you take the whole sensitivity thing?
That's a loaded question, but a good one. I, especially as I go through, Lynn. So Lynn just clarified. I mean, should brands ask permission to post about Father's Day and every other holiday? How about specific topics? Everyone can potentially be offended by any content. That's such a good point. I think, online retailers are one thing. Other types of businesses that aren't necessarily selling products directly to consumers, I think one really important question to ask is, what is the purpose of me sending an email about, and I've ranted about this on LinkedIn before, why are you sending an email on President's Day? Why are you sending an email on Arbor Day? If you're selling mattresses or furniture, go ahead, send that President's Day email. If you actively have a tree planting initiative within your business, or you're doing something to really shift your business's ecological footprint, great, send the email. So I think one way to circumvent the idea of hypersensitivity is, again, to be intentional with what you're sending and really think through what am I trying to accomplish by putting out this communication. The same goes for social media. When I see X business, posting a picture of, a waving flag and a screaming eagle on Veterans Day or Memorial Day, I'm like, y'all, what are you adding to the conversation? And that's me being the reverse of sensitive. I get yes, we appreciate our troops. Thank you for your service, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But why?
Well, I think with those sorts of situations, a lot of companies, and this is a whole nother topic, but they confuse vanity metrics for marketing, right? It's easy to post that Memorial Day thing on Facebook and LinkedIn and get a lot of clicks and a lot of likes and whatever it is. But those are not the sort of metrics that are actually contributing to sales. It's not really building a relationship.
No one is going to remember.
If your marketing team is
oh wow,
no,
they posted a really great GIF on National Pizza Day,
right.
So good. No.
Yeah. But it's the incentives. If the marketing is judged on those sorts of metrics to determine if their social media strategy is working, you can see why we post things, overpost. But I think ultimately it comes down to companies post that when they don't know what else to say. They don't actually have a content strategy or a point of view that matters. And so they default to things like company news, holiday updates, and this really surface level stuff that is,
it's
all it is it's inbox marketing.
Yeah.
You're just showing up with your name in their inbox, but you're not adding
Then
value.
I think the other thing to consider, particularly regarding, everyone potentially being offended by something, it's true. And I think businesses just need to be clear on what they care about. For me, I get offended by a lot. And I don't necessarily, I try not to preach about those things in the communication that I do. But if there's an opportunity to constructively contribute to the conversation in a way that will add value for folks, whether it's just teaching them something, making them aware of a blind spot, whatever, honestly, come hell or high water, like if it pisses somebody off, that's okay, because it's the hill that I've chosen to die on. And that's the reverse of worrying about offending someone by, sending out a Mother's Day email. I think it just depends on what your priorities are as a business. And if it's okay if you don't particularly care about that one thing. And if you know who your ideal customer is and they don't necessarily care about that topic, about flubbing up talking about that topic, then don't spend so much time worrying about it. I think there's like a Dr. Seuss thing about those who mind don't matter and those who matter don't mind. I don't know, but just understand who you're talking to, and again, build a relationship, be intentional, and worry about it if it's something you feel like you should be worried about.
I think that's a big part of it. I think it's the idea that in our own lives as humans, we have a tendency to think that we are the main character of the story. And what we forget is that everyone is the main character in their own story. And so it's not like this movie where it's not the Truman Show, where it's all about this one character and everyone is the supporting character around them. That's not the way life works. And so one thing that I think is really important as we talk about this idea of consent is that it is critical. And again, this comes back to intentionality. You have to think about your audience. You have to be like, there's no just being flippant about some of the stuff that you send or post. Like, you just have to think about who your audience is, who those individuals are, even beyond like, I think about my customer persona and that person's name is this. Like, if you have an audience at all, you can think about who those people are. You can spend the time, but that means I'm going to have to waste time doing that. It's like, yeah. And the benefit you're going to see,
but
it's not, because what you're going to see is there, and it's the same way in our relationships in life, that you can't just leap straight to, the really close, really fierce relationships with individuals. Like, very rarely does that happen. We're not all living in a rom-com. Like, there's a reality where, I know, I'm sorry. It's just not true. There is a period of time where you get to know, even a friendship, you get to know someone and you learn their likes and dislikes. You learn to connect. And we see this in business, that the axiom is that a returning customer is so much more valuable than constantly going out and getting new customers. Getting new customers is so expensive compared to how do we just continue a relationship with existing customers. And so that's this thing that we're talking about here, is by giving people, like, if you give people no opportunity to either, like, if all you give them is subscribe or unsubscribe, people are going to pick unsubscribe after, it may be after one email, it may be after 5, it may be after 10, but that's what they're going to pick. And then you've lost that opportunity. Whereas, like you're saying, Paige, giving people the opportunity to connect at different levels, or like choose what they're interested in, by being intentional, you're not only keeping them, you're making your brand stickier, where they're sticking around rather than, just bailing. And it gives you an opportunity. It gives you more metrics. It gives you more of an idea of, oh, look, we have a bigger audience that chooses to hear about, if you're that bra company, it's like, oh, look, a lot of people are choosing that they'd love to hear more, body affirming, positivity kind of emails. Like, write more of those, because those are the customers telling you that's the way to reach them. So you got to be, it's a constant, you got to be listening, you got to be intentional, and you've got to be willing to come at it from a compassionate, humble perspective to say, I'm here to serve the customer. I'm here to serve my audience. It's not about me.
Oh, imagine that. Imagine that. What a world that would be.
There was a question over on LinkedIn, and I think we're going to wrap up here pretty quick here, but about what kind of trends of what is working in email are you seeing? And then also just from a content standpoint, more design, less design, more narrative. It's kind of what David's talking about, figuring out what is it that your audience does care about and wants to hear. But Paige, what are your thoughts on just it's a more general question about some best practices around email marketing.
Unfortunately, I did not prepare information on that topic, so I cannot answer. That's, honestly, I would love to hear from you guys on what email trends are out there for you, because as much as I can talk about consent in email marketing, I'm not always doing the best job of, sending out marketing emails for my own business. And, only so often do I get to write ongoing campaigns for my own clients. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, what are the emails that you open right now? Like, what's working on you? Maybe that's an easier way to answer this question.
I don't open a lot of emails.
Yeah. What did you not unsubscribe
well,
to?
I have been unsubscribing from a lot of product focused emails lately, because, and I won't say that it's because I don't want to interact with a brand. I have some brands that I'm very loyal to whose emails I've unsubscribed from because I don't need them. I have a plugin in my browser that will find all the coupon codes. So I don't need y'all to send me a discount code. Like, I can get it through my shopping app. I'm part of a lot of Substacks and other kind of journalism / discussion groups where I'm being directly invited to contribute to the conversation. And that's what we're trying to do here too. Like, we're trying to make people an active part of a discussion and not just like blah, blah, blah at them. So I almost always open those emails and see, like, is this a conversation that I feel like I can contribute to constructively? And I'm also, I open most of my news related emails because I let that stuff come to me instead of letting it bombard me all through the day. But yeah, I find that not a lot of email marketing resonates with me as a consumer because so many people are just blanketing. Bad answer to that question.
I'll say one thing that there's a simple thing that works for me is I don't click from an email to read anything.
Oh yeah.
I will if the content is in the email, I will read it if it's good. There's a few writers that I really appreciate what they're sending me. But if they ask me, if they tease a blog article and I need to go to their site to read it,
and I would so much rather do the opposite. I get distracted in my inbox, so I will almost invariably go to the blog post and I'll save it to my pocket so I can read it later when I can really dedicate my attention to it if it's a topic that I really care about. Which I think goes to the idea that people have so many different ways of taking in your content. And, if they unsubscribe from your emails for any reason, like, it's not personal, it's just information. And, you can use that information without getting offended by the fact that, like, oh, this campaign really didn't work.
It's important to remember too that and this is going to vary wildly depending on what the product is and who the audience is and how big the audience is. But the reality is, for pretty much, I don't know what percent of products, and I'm not an expert enough to say in my experience it's this percent. A lot of consumers, and by a lot of consumers I mean me, in my experience, there are so many products that I don't need all the time, but I'm not giving up on being a customer. And so you have to, as you're thinking about marketing to your audience, you remember that like Sarah was saying in the comments about the, body positivity emails, it's not always about making a sale. Sometimes it's just purely about being top of mind. But the top of mind shouldn't come in the form of like our company update or, whatever. Like you have to be intentional in whatever, based on your market, based on your audience, what those, ongoing emails are. But it's not always about selling. And even
That's
you
such
just
a
have
good
to,
point.
it's just continuing to say, hey, we're here, but in a valuable way to your audience. So that it's like,
Yep.
6 months between whatever look at whatever the buying cycle is on whatever your product is and say our customers aren't like, they're just not going to buy daily or weekly if it's a monthly product or a bi-yearly product. They just aren't. So how do you continue that relationship in a meaningful way without getting to that, whatever that 6 month or a year mark or whatever it is, and your customer goes, what was the name of that company? Crap. And then you run the risk of them just going to a search engine and finding your competitor. Like how do you maintain that top of mind, but in a way that it brings value to your customer and recognizes that your customer isn't looking for you to sell to them every time. They're just, but they are looking for you to continue that relationship. So what does that look like in your market?
Yep. Yeah. And that's how we not only get consent, but maintain it.
Yeah.
All right. What can we not stop thinking about?
All right.
I want to hear it from Matt.
I can go. I was traveling for work last week or earlier this week. Last week, yeah. I think Thursday night I went to see Everything Everywhere All at Once.
I have not yet, but I've heard such great things.
I haven't
Have you
yet.
seen
I don't
it?
go to theaters.
Okay. Well, so what I can't stop thinking about, and I don't really want to give spoilers, is hot dog fingers. For anyone that has seen it, I mean, it's a crazy movie. This is like, I don't know, background information on Matt. I spent some time living in China, and so I speak some functional but not fluent Chinese. And there's a family that speaks Chinese in the movie, and I found myself at various points being the only person laughing at a joke that didn't translate by subtitle, but was pretty funny in the original. So anyway, it's a crazy, interesting movie. I can't. This is the worst thing to bring up as what I can't stop thinking about.
But if you know, you know.
Because if you're going to see it, it's just would give too much away. But it's one of those. It's like a family movie. It's about regular people, but it has these weird like sci-fi elements to it, which is very fun. There's a lot of great stuff in it. So, Paige, what about you? What can't you stop thinking about?
Honestly, I can't stop thinking about how hard I worked over the weekend. I painted my bedroom ceiling and the walls, and I feel like an utter badass. I understand now why professional painters charge what
Painting
they do.
ceilings is the worst.
Oh my God. Yeah. So I'm just thinking about how I leveled up as a homeowner, and I think I'll probably be pretty proud of myself for a while.
And speaking of hot
David?
leads, Lynn says in the comments, I will pay someone $1 million to paint for me. So
Any payers?
I'm actually going to
Go get it.
I'm going to shut down Hepburn Creative right
We'll
now.
sell you
and I'm
her
just gonna
email
go to Lynn's
address.
house and paint because I will do that for $1 million for sure. I think for me, I am thinking one thing that I can't stop thinking about is something hilarious that happened this weekend. We have two dogs, one that's about 1.5 years and one that's a 4.5-month-old puppy. And we have our older dog loves to swim in our backyard pool. And our younger puppy has just been like, not too sure about the whole swimming idea. But the exciting thing is over the weekend, yesterday, she just started jumping in on her own. So the time has come that now we have two dogs that love swimming in the pool. So that's what I can't stop thinking about because it's incredibly adorable.
Very good. Well, it has been great talking with both of you today about this topic, and I'm excited to continue the conversation. So this has been the Hello First Name podcast. You can find us at hellofirstnamepod.com. And you can, if you'd like to subscribe, we will be on Apple Podcasts and probably eventually other places as well. But I think we'll leave it there for today. I am Matt.
I am Paige.
And I'm David. Thanks for joining us.